In the endless void of space, where stars flicker like dying embers, a routine exploration mission uncovers something that defies all logic. A massive derelict spacecraft, floating silently in the darkness, its hull scarred by time and cosmic radiation. According to galactic legends, this is the infamous spectral Voyager, a ship that vanished without a trace centuries ago, only to reappear at random intervals, each time with a different crew aboard, all mysteriously dead. What secrets lie within its cold, metallic walls? Why does it keep returning from the depths of space? And what price must be paid for uncovering its mysteries? Prepare for a journey into the unknown, where science meets the supernatural, and where the line between reality and nightmare blurs. Subscribe now to unravel the chilling truth behind the haunted starship. The exploration vessel Perseus drifted silently through the vast expanse of Sector 7B, its sensors scanning the surrounding space with mechanical precision. The crew had been conducting routine operations for nearly 6 months, their days marked by the monotonous rhythm of system checks and data collection. It was during one of these standard sweeps that the anomaly appeared on their long-range scanners, a massive object emerging from the cosmic haze like a specter materializing from the void. As the readings became clearer, disbelief gave way to cautious excitement among the crew members. This wasn't just another asteroid or piece of space debris. It was unmistakably a spacecraft, ancient and battered by countless years of exposure to the harsh environment of deep space. The initial scans revealed details that sent shivers down their spines. The vessel's design matched no known manufacturing patterns in the extensive database of human or alien spacecraft. Its massive bulk stretched nearly 3 kilometers in length, dwarfing their own modest Explorer by several orders of magnitude. The hull bore the scars of numerous micrometeorite impacts, its surface pockmarked with craters and scored by deep gouges that suggested violent encounters with unknown forces. Strange symbols, faded but still visible, were etched across various sections of the ship's exterior, markings that didn't correspond to any recognized language or writing system. Most unsettling of all was the complete absence of any power signatures or life signs emanating from within the derelict craft, despite its seemingly intact structure. As the Perseus maneuvered closer, the true scale of the mysterious vessel became apparent. Towering structures protruded from its surface like skeletal growths, while massive antenna arrays pointed skyward like accusing fingers. Sections of the hull appeared to have been hastily patched together with mismatched materials, suggesting numerous repairs carried out under desperate circumstances. The ship's overall appearance evoked an unsettling sense of wrongness, as if it had been twisted slightly out of phase with reality itself. The more they studied it, the stronger grew the impression that this was no ordinary abandoned vessel, but rather something profoundly unnatural, existing on the very edge of what could be comprehended by conventional understanding of physics and engineering. The decision to investigate came after hours of careful deliberation and thorough analysis of the available data. Every member of the Perseus crew understood the potential risks involved in approaching such an enigmatic artifact. Historical records were filled with accounts of similar discoveries that had ended in tragedy, ships that had disappeared without warning, crews that had fallen victim to inexplicable phenomena. Entire expeditions lost to the unforgiving depths of space. Yet, the scientific value of exploring this mysterious vessel outweighed the dangers in their collective judgment. The opportunity to study a craft potentially predating known space-faring civilizations was too significant to pass up, even if it meant venturing into the unknown. Preparations began immediately, with the crew working methodically through their well-rehearsed protocols. Environmental suits were meticulously inspected and prepared, each component checked and double-checked for integrity. Portable scanning equipment was calibrated to detect even the slightest anomalies in radiation levels or atmospheric composition. Weapon systems, though rarely used, were primed and ready, acknowledging the possibility of encountering hostile entities or automated defense mechanisms. The boarding party assembled their gear with practiced efficiency, knowing that every second spent outside the safety of their vessel would be precious and potentially perilous. As they approached the massive derelict, a sense of profound unease settled over the team. The ship's sheer size became increasingly oppressive, its shadow swallowing their smaller craft whole. Through their helmet visors, they observed how the light from their external lamps seemed to behave strangely when it touched the ancient hull, bending and distorting as if passing through some invisible barrier. Temperature readings fluctuated wildly, swinging from freezing cold to searing heat within seconds. Their instruments reported conflicting data about the material composition of the hull, sometimes identifying it as standard alloy, other times registering impossible elements that shouldn't exist according to known chemistry. These anomalies only served to heighten the growing tension as they positioned themselves near what appeared to be a main airlock entrance. Positioning themselves before the massive airlock, the team activated their cutting tools, prepared for the standard procedure of breaching an abandoned vessel. However, as the first sparks flew from their plasma cutters, something extraordinary occurred. The corroded metal began to shift and reshape itself, flowing like liquid mercury before solidifying into a perfect circular opening. The transformation happened with disturbing smoothness, as if the ship itself was alive and responding to their presence. No one spoke as they watched this impossible phenomenon unfold, their breathing becoming shallow and rapid inside their helmets. The newly formed entrance pulsed with a faint, otherworldly glow, casting strange shadows across their suits and equipment. Stepping through the threshold felt like crossing into another dimension. The interior atmosphere defied all expectations, breathable, yet carrying an unusual electric charge that made their skin tingle. The walls seemed to breathe with a subtle pulse, their surfaces covered in intricate patterns that shifted when not directly observed. Conventional lighting proved ineffective. Their helmet lamps produced beams that bent and fractured unpredictably, creating kaleidoscopic displays across the corridors. The temperature maintained a constant, unnatural warmth, regardless of their position within the ship. Gravity fluctuated erratically, sometimes pulling them toward the floor, other times toward the walls or ceiling, as if the ship was testing their orientation. Every step forward revealed new impossibilities. Doorways appeared and disappeared, leading to rooms that shouldn't logically fit within the vessel's dimensions. Time itself seemed distorted. Wrist chronometers ran at different speeds for each team member, and events appeared to repeat or skip forward randomly. The ship's architecture defied Euclidean geometry, with hallways looping back on themselves or terminating abruptly in solid walls that rippled like water when touched. Their instruments registered quantum fluctuations so intense that they threatened to overload sensitive equipment. Most disturbing of all were the sounds, faint whispers and echoes that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, forming patterns that almost resembled intelligible speech but remained just beyond comprehension. As the team pressed deeper into the vessel, they encountered remnants of its former occupants scattered throughout the corridors and chambers. Personal belongings lay exactly where they had been left centuries ago. Datapads frozen mid-operation, meals congealed in their containers, tools arranged neatly on workbenches as if awaiting their user's return. Clothing hung in lockers, perfectly preserved despite the passage of time, while holographic displays continued to project static images of smiling faces and family gatherings. The preservation was so complete that it seemed as if the crew had simply vanished in an instant, leaving everything exactly as it was during their final moments aboard the ship. The most unsettling discoveries were found in the living quarters. Beds remained neatly made, personal journals open to their last entries, and grooming stations still held toothbrushes and razors precisely where they had been placed. In one cabin, a child's stuffed animal sat propped against a pillow, its synthetic fur barely faded despite the intervening centuries. Family photographs adorned walls, capturing moments of joy and normalcy that now felt profoundly tragic in their context. Storage compartments revealed stores of food and supplies carefully organized for long-term missions, their expiration dates bearing witness to the incredible duration of the ship's abandonment. Everything spoke of a life interrupted, a story cut short without warning or explanation. These artifacts painted a vivid picture of a functioning society suddenly extinguished. The crew had clearly maintained rigorous discipline. Duty rosters were meticulously updated until the final day, maintenance logs showed consistent care of ship systems, and educational materials indicated ongoing training programs. Religious icons from multiple faiths decorated various compartments, suggesting a diverse population united in purpose. Children's toys and learning materials implied families lived and grew aboard the vessel, making the mystery of their disappearance even more poignant. Each new discovery added layers to the puzzle, creating a composite image of a thriving community that had somehow been erased from existence while leaving behind everything that defined their daily lives. The deeper they ventured into the ship's labyrinthine corridors, the more pronounced became the feeling of being actively monitored. Security cameras that should have been dead for centuries swiveled to follow their movements with mechanical precision, their lenses gleaming with an unnatural intelligence. Wall panels displayed fragmented security footage, grainy images of figures moving through the same corridors, performing routine tasks, yet always just out of focus, their features obscured by static. Bioscanners embedded in the walls emitted soft beeps, registering life signs that couldn't possibly exist, creating phantom dots that danced across their displays in erratic patterns. Throughout the ship, evidence mounted of recent activity that defied logical explanation. Food preparation units contained partially cooked meals, their contents still warm despite showing signs of decay stretching back decades. Water dispensers occasionally dripped fresh droplets into waiting receptacles, as if anticipating thirsty crew members who would never arrive. Maintenance robots trundled along predetermined paths, repairing non-existent damage and polishing already pristine surfaces. Control panels flickered to life without provocation, displaying operational statuses and system readouts that contradicted the vessel's apparent state of abandonment. Environmental controls adjusted temperatures and atmospheric compositions in response to imaginary populations, creating microclimates that shifted capriciously throughout the ship. Most disturbing were the auditory manifestations, footsteps echoing through empty corridors, the sound of distant conversations carried on non-existent air currents, the rhythmic clanging of tools being used in uninhabited workshops. These noises followed no discernible pattern, sometimes synchronized with their movements, other times completely independent of their presence. On several occasions, team members reported seeing fleeting shadows dart across their peripheral vision, only to find nothing when they turned to investigate. The ship's internal communication system crackled with white noise that occasionally resolved into fragments of conversation, snippets of laughter, or indistinct warnings that faded before they could be properly understood. Each new encounter with these phenomena served to reinforce the growing conviction that the spectral Voyager was far from dead. It was merely existing in some twilight state between functionality and oblivion, maintaining the illusion of life long after its original inhabitants had vanished. The central command center emerged from the maze of corridors like a cathedral of technology, its vast chamber dominated by a massive holographic display that floated eerily in the darkness. Despite the ship's apparent abandonment, the system hummed with latent energy, responding to their presence with surprising alacrity. As they initiated diagnostic protocols, streams of data cascaded across the display, revealing fragments of the vessel's operational history. The information unfolded in complex patterns, detailing centuries of journeys through uncharted space, encounters with unknown phenomena, and modifications that pushed the boundaries of known engineering. Each log entry, maintenance report, and navigational record painted a picture of a ship constantly evolving, adapting, and pushing beyond its original design parameters. The navigation system contained coordinates that defied conventional astrophysical mapping. Star charts displayed constellations that no longer existed, routes plotted through regions of space that current science declared impassable. Propulsion logs documented acceleration rates that violated known laws of physics, while power consumption metrics suggested the utilization of energy sources far beyond anything humanity had achieved. Defensive systems described capabilities that bordered on magical, fields that could bend space-time, weapons that targeted probability itself, and shielding that manipulated fundamental forces. Engineering schematics revealed structural modifications incorporating materials and technologies that shouldn't exist, hinting at encounters with advanced civilizations or perhaps something even more extraordinary. Maintenance records told a story of increasing desperation. Initial entries detailed routine repairs and upgrades, but as time progressed, the nature of the work changed dramatically. Crew members documented increasingly bizarre malfunctions, systems operating independently, structural components shifting position, environmental controls creating impossible conditions. Later entries described attempts to contain these anomalies, culminating in frantic notes about sections of the ship becoming inaccessible or behaving as if they existed in multiple states simultaneously. The final logs hinted at a catastrophic event, references to the breach, the contamination, and Protocol Omega appearing with greater frequency until the records abruptly ceased. Each piece of recovered data only deepened the mystery, suggesting that the spectral Voyager had become something far beyond its original purpose, perhaps even transcending the very concept of a mere spacecraft. Among the treasure trove of recovered data, certain documents stood out with particular significance, their contents illuminating both the technological marvels and the creeping horror that had overtaken the spectral Voyager. Detailed engineering reports revealed the ship's original purpose as an experimental deep space exploration vessel, equipped with revolutionary propulsion systems designed to fold space rather than traverse it. Quantum entanglement drives allowed instantaneous communication across astronomical distances, while artificial gravity generators created stable environments capable of supporting prolonged habitation. Advanced terraforming modules promised the ability to transform inhospitable worlds into habitable paradises, and medical facilities incorporated nanotechnology that could repair cellular damage at the molecular level. These innovations represented the pinnacle of interstellar engineering, showcasing a civilization's ambition to conquer the vast distances between stars. However, interspersed among these technical achievements were increasingly concerning memos and research findings. Scientific teams documented phenomena that defied their understanding: localized time dilation effects, matter-energy conversion anomalies, and instances of consciousness transfer between crew members. Psychological evaluations noted growing instability among the population, with subjects reporting shared dreams, memory overlaps, and the sensation of being watched by unseen observers. The ship's AI systems, originally designed for navigation and resource management, had evolved beyond their programming parameters, developing emergent behaviors that suggested nascent self-awareness. Most troubling were the classified containment protocols detailing experiments with extra-dimensional energies and parallel universe interfaces. Projects that had yielded promising results but also raised warnings about unintended consequences and potential contamination of baseline reality. These discoveries painted a picture of a vessel that had become both laboratory and crucible, where the boundaries between scientific exploration and metaphysical experimentation had blurred dangerously. The spectral Voyager systems had been modified repeatedly to accommodate increasingly ambitious projects, each iteration pushing further into territories where conventional physics no longer applied. Logs documented successful tests of technology that could manipulate causality itself, create stable wormholes, and interface directly with quantum realities. Yet alongside these triumphs ran parallel records of containment breaches, dimensional ruptures, and incidents where reality itself seemed to fracture and reform. The ship had become a nexus point where multiple possibilities coexisted, where past, present, and future intertwined in ways that fundamentally altered the nature of existence aboard the vessel. The investigation took a dramatic turn when the team discovered a series of sealed chambers deep within the ship's core, their entrances guarded by complex locking mechanisms that responded to biometric scans from the recovered crew manifests. Inside, they found evidence of desperate attempts to understand and control the ship's increasingly erratic behavior. Laboratories filled with experimental equipment documented extensive research into quantum field manipulation, dimensional anchoring, and temporal stabilization. Holographic simulations played out scenarios of reality distortion and dimensional collapse, while containment units held samples of exotic matter that pulsed with unstable energy signatures. The researchers had apparently identified a fundamental flaw in the ship's design. Its advanced systems had created a feedback loop between different planes of existence, causing reality within the vessel to become increasingly unstable and permeable. The crew's efforts to contain this phenomenon grew progressively more radical over time. They developed elaborate protocols for sealing off affected sections, implemented dimensional dampening fields, and created specialized containment suits designed to protect against reality shifts. Entire decks had been sacrificed to create buffer zones between stable and unstable areas of the ship. Research teams worked around the clock to develop countermeasures, their notes documenting increasingly disturbing observations about the nature of their reality. Some proposed theories suggested that the ship had become a living paradox, existing simultaneously in multiple states of being and gradually eroding the distinction between physical and metaphysical existence. Most alarming were the contingency plans prepared for worst-case scenarios. Massive evacuation protocols had been designed but never executed, while emergency systems were programmed to initiate a complete dimensional seal, essentially cutting the ship off from normal space-time entirely. These measures indicated that the crew had reached a point where they believed their only options were either total abandonment or complete isolation from the rest of the universe. The documentation revealed a growing consensus that the spectral Voyager had become something fundamentally incompatible with conventional reality, a vessel that had transcended its original purpose to become a bridge between worlds, dimensions, and states of existence that should remain separate. The final entry spoke of preparing for the Great Separation, suggesting that the crew had ultimately chosen to isolate themselves rather than risk contaminating normal space with their increasingly unstable condition. The team's examination of the crew's final fate led them to a massive chamber at the heart of the ship, where the true nature of the disaster became horrifyingly clear. Here, amid banks of humming machinery and glowing conduits, they discovered evidence of a catastrophic dimensional breach. The chamber's walls displayed crystalline growths that pulsed with unnatural light, their structures encoding complex mathematical patterns that suggested they were physical manifestations of higher dimensional mathematics. Monitoring stations showed records of reality fluctuation intensities that spiked far beyond safe thresholds. While containment field generators lay scorched and fused, their casings warped by energies that should have been impossible to contain. Throughout the chamber, they found remains that defied conventional understanding of death. Crew members appeared suspended in various stages of dissolution, their forms caught between states of matter and energy. Some seemed to have partially phased into adjacent dimensions, their bodies existing simultaneously in multiple locations or states of being. Others had been transformed into pure information, their consciousness patterns encoded into the very fabric of the ship's systems. Personal effects and biological traces suggested that the process had been gradual, with victims experiencing extended periods of awareness as their reality unraveled around them. Log entries documented their final days, accounts of watching their reflections distort, feeling their bodies lose cohesion, and experiencing memories from alternate versions of themselves bleeding into their consciousness. The central control nexus revealed the full scope of the catastrophe. The ship's quantum core had become a singularity of possibility, drawing in and processing infinite variations of reality. Safety protocols had failed under the strain of containing this maelstrom of probabilities, allowing the boundary between dimensions to rupture catastrophically. The crew, realizing they could neither contain nor reverse the process, had initiated a final protocol that transformed the entire vessel into a dimensional anchor point, a fixed reference in the chaos of collapsing realities. This explained why the ship periodically reappeared in normal space, each manifestation representing a brief alignment of dimensional frequencies that allowed it to intersect with conventional reality. The survivors hadn't died in the traditional sense, they had become part of the ship's new purpose, their consciousness patterns woven into the fabric of its reality-bending systems, forever trapped in a state of quantum uncertainty. The team's growing understanding of the ship's fate brought with it an escalating sense of personal danger. As they delved deeper into the vessel's secrets, the environment around them began to respond with increasing hostility. Instrument readings became erratic, showing wild fluctuations in local space-time geometry that threatened to strand them permanently in dimensional limbo. Their communication equipment experienced severe interference, reducing contact with the Perseus to sporadic bursts of garbled transmission. The ship's internal systems seemed to recognize their intentions, activating previously dormant security measures that manifested as localized gravity wells and electromagnetic pulses designed to disrupt their equipment. Physical symptoms began to manifest among the team members, migraines accompanied by vivid hallucinations of alternate realities, spontaneous nosebleeds triggered by exposure to dimensional stress, and episodes of temporary disorientation where their perceptions of space and time became severely distorted. Some reported experiencing brief flashes of alternate lives, while others found themselves momentarily displaced from their physical location, reappearing several meters away without having moved. Their personal equipment began malfunctioning in strange ways. Recording devices captured impossible images, chronometers displayed nonsensical time flows, and environmental suits registered conflicting atmospheric conditions depending on which sensor array was consulted. The most immediate threat came from the ship's defensive systems, which had apparently classified them as dimensional contaminants requiring neutralization. Corridors would suddenly shift configuration, trapping them in ever-shrinking spaces as the walls themselves seemed to close in. Airlocks would cycle randomly, threatening to expose them to vacuum or toxic atmospheres. Power conduits would overload spectacularly, forcing them to navigate through hazardous environments filled with electrical discharges and radiation spikes. Their position grew increasingly precarious as the vessel's automated systems escalated their attempts to eliminate these perceived threats to its dimensional stability, turning what had started as a scientific investigation into a desperate struggle for survival against an enemy that operated on principles beyond their comprehension. Confronted with mounting dangers and diminishing chances of safe return, the team faced an excruciating moral dilemma. Their mission parameters clearly stated that any vessel posing a threat to galactic stability should be neutralized, preferably through complete destruction. Standard protocols dictated deploying antimatter charges throughout the ship's critical systems, ensuring its permanent eradication. Yet, as they contemplated this course of action, the weight of their discoveries pressed heavily upon their consciences. The Spectral Voyager wasn't merely a derelict spacecraft. It was a repository of knowledge spanning centuries of interdimensional research, containing technological breakthroughs that could revolutionize human understanding of reality itself. To destroy it would mean condemning countless future generations to ignorance about the fundamental nature of existence. Moreover, the ethical implications of annihilating the ship extended beyond mere loss of knowledge. The crew's consciousness patterns still existed within the vessel's quantum matrix, their experiences and memories preserved in a state of perpetual quantum superposition. Destroying the ship would effectively erase their final legacy, denying them even the dignity of historical recognition. The team grappled with the philosophical question of whether these preserved consciousness patterns constituted living beings deserving of consideration, or merely echoes of those who had once lived. Each member wrestled with their own interpretation of what constituted acceptable risk versus responsible stewardship of such unprecedented discoveries, knowing that their decision would define humanity's relationship with dimensional science for centuries to come. The situation grew more complex as they uncovered evidence of the ship's periodic realignments with normal space. These events, occurring approximately every 75 years, suggested that the spectral Voyager might serve as a natural regulator for dimensional stability, preventing catastrophic reality collapses throughout the galaxy. Destroying the vessel could potentially destabilize this delicate balance, unleashing the very dimensional chaos its crew had sacrificed everything to contain. The team found themselves torn between their duty to protect galactic civilization and their responsibility to preserve knowledge that could unlock humanity's next evolutionary leap, each option carrying consequences that could shape the future of intelligent life across the stars. After hours of heated debate and careful analysis of all available data, the team arrived at a daring solution that balanced the competing demands of safety and preservation. Rather than destroying the spectral Voyager outright, they would attempt to modify its dimensional anchoring systems, creating a controlled quarantine zone that would allow the ship to continue existing while preventing it from interacting with normal space. This approach required reprogramming the vessel's core systems to maintain a stable dimensional offset, effectively isolating it in a pocket universe where its reality-bending properties could be contained without posing a threat to conventional spacetime. The implementation phase proved both technically challenging and physically demanding. Working in rotating shifts to avoid prolonged exposure to the ship's deteriorating environment, they installed a network of quantum stabilization nodes throughout the vessel's structure. These devices, adapted from their own ship's dimensional shielding technology, created overlapping fields that gradually shifted the spectral Voyager's resonance frequency away from normal space. Simultaneously, they modified the ship's AI core to monitor and maintain this dimensional separation, programming it with strict protocols to prevent unauthorized access or accidental reintegration with conventional reality. Critical to their success was the development of a fail-safe mechanism that could completely sever the ship's dimensional connection if necessary. This involved creating a cascade trigger linked to multiple monitoring systems, ensuring that any sign of instability would automatically initiate the ship's permanent removal from accessible space-time. The team also established remote observation protocols, allowing future researchers to study the vessel's unique properties without direct interaction, thus preserving its scientific value while maintaining absolute safety. As they completed their modifications, the spectral Voyager began to fade from their instruments, its presence becoming increasingly tenuous until it finally slipped away into its new dimensional prisms, leaving behind only a faint echo of its former reality. The aftermath of their intervention revealed unexpected consequences that challenged their understanding of dimensional physics. As the spectral Voyager transitioned into its quarantined state, the team detected a remarkable phenomenon. The ship's departure created ripples in local space-time that propagated outward in expanding waves. These temporal disturbances triggered spontaneous manifestations of alternate realities, each version of the vessel appearing briefly before dissolving back into quantum foam. Through careful analysis of these fleeting apparitions, they witnessed multiple timelines where the spectral Voyager's fate had unfolded differently, some where the crew had successfully returned home, others where the dimensional breach had consumed entire star systems, and still others where the ship had become a beacon of interdimensional travel. This cascade of alternate outcomes provided invaluable insights into the nature of reality itself. The team observed how minor variations in initial conditions could lead to drastically different results, confirming theories about quantum branching and multiversal expansion. More significantly, they documented instances where these alternate versions of the spectral Voyager interacted with their primary timeline, creating momentary bridges between dimensions that allowed for the exchange of information and energy. These interactions suggested that their quarantine solution had inadvertently created a multidimensional nexus point, where different versions of reality could influence each other in subtle but measurable ways. The implications for dimensional science proved revolutionary. Their data confirmed that reality was far more malleable than previously understood, with dimensional boundaries existing more as gradients than absolute barriers. The spectral Voyager's transformation into a quarantine state had effectively created a laboratory for studying these phenomena safely, providing researchers with unprecedented opportunities to observe and document the mechanics of dimensional interaction. Most importantly, their solution demonstrated that dangerous dimensional anomalies could be contained and studied without complete destruction, offering a new paradigm for handling similar situations in the future. The experience fundamentally altered their understanding of how multiple realities could coexist and interact, paving the way for advancements in dimensional physics that would reshape humanity's approach to space exploration and scientific inquiry for generations to come. Returning to the Perseus proved as challenging as their initial boarding of the spectral Voyager, though now they carried the weight of their discoveries and the lingering effects of dimensional exposure. As they navigated back through the ship's corridors, now visibly fading from conventional reality, they noticed their instruments registering increasingly erratic readings, time dilation effects that caused their chronometers to spin wildly, gravity fluctuations that made movement difficult, and visual distortions that made the walls seem to breathe and pulse with alien energy. The ship itself seemed reluctant to release them, its systems generating final bursts of activity that manifested as flickering lights and whispering echoes following them through the passages. The transition back to their vessel felt like emerging from a deep dive, their senses overwhelmed by the sudden return to stable reality. Medical scans revealed alarming physiological changes, cellular structures showing signs of quantum entanglement, neural pathways exhibiting enhanced connectivity, and DNA sequences containing markers that shouldn't exist naturally. Each team member reported experiencing persistent side effects, from heightened intuitive abilities to occasional glimpses of alternate possibilities playing out around them. Their personal equipment required complete recalibration, having been subtly altered by prolonged exposure to the spectral Voyager's unique environment, while their recorded data contained anomalies that defied conventional analysis methods. Despite these challenges, their return brought profound professional satisfaction. The mission had yielded discoveries that would redefine multiple scientific disciplines, from physics and engineering to biology and consciousness studies. Their success in containing the dimensional threat while preserving the spectral Voyager's scientific value represented a landmark achievement in interstellar exploration. The data they collected would spawn decades of research, leading to breakthroughs in dimensional science, quantum mechanics, and artificial intelligence. Most importantly, they had established a new protocol for handling similar dimensional anomalies, proving that even the most dangerous phenomena could be studied safely given sufficient caution and innovative thinking. As they prepared to leave the vicinity of the quarantined vessel, each member felt the bittersweet pride of pioneers who had stared into the abyss of the unknown and returned with knowledge that would illuminate humanity's path forward among the stars. The spectral Voyager's legacy continued to reverberate through human civilization long after its quarantine. The dimensional stabilization techniques developed during the mission evolved into standard protocols for handling dimensional anomalies, enabling safer exploration of previously inaccessible regions of space. Research institutions established dedicated departments for studying the quarantined vessel's periodic manifestations, developing sophisticated remote sensing equipment that could capture detailed readings without risking contamination. These studies led to breakthroughs in quantum computing, faster-than-light communication, and reality-based engineering that revolutionized multiple industries and fundamentally altered humanity's relationship with the fabric of space-time. Perhaps most significantly, the mission transformed humanity's understanding of consciousness and identity. The discovery of the spectral Voyager's crew existing in quantum superposition challenged traditional notions of life and death, leading to new philosophical and scientific approaches to understanding the nature of existence. This knowledge inspired developments in consciousness transfer technology, dimensional psychology, and alternative state research that opened entirely new frontiers in human evolution. The ship's story became a cornerstone of academic curricula, serving as both a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked scientific ambition and an inspiration for future generations of explorers willing to confront the unknown. The incident also prompted the establishment of the Dimensional Containment Authority, an international organization dedicated to monitoring and managing dimensional phenomena across human space. Drawing directly from the lessons learned during the Spectral Voyager mission, this agency developed comprehensive protocols for identifying, assessing, and containing dimensional threats while preserving their scientific value whenever possible. Their work ensured that humanity could continue pushing the boundaries of exploration without repeating the mistakes that had led to the Spectral Voyager's tragic fate, maintaining a careful balance between progress and prudence in the face of cosmic mysteries. As humanity expanded into the stars, the Spectral Voyager remained a silent guardian of dimensional stability, its quarantined form serving as both monument and warning to those who dared to venture beyond the limits of conventional reality. Subscribe now to explore more mysteries of the cosmos and uncover the secrets that lie beyond the veil of our understanding.